Alright, so today I'm Joe DeMarco, Perry Brothers Construction. I'm here with my good friend Kenny Alexander, one of our carpenters and job foremen. And I just wanted to discuss with him about, his general, the job he does, framing, his years of experience working with Perry Brothers and everything. So, Kenny, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Hey,
How long have you been working?
I've been doing carpentry for 40 years. I've been with Perry Brothers for 25, 26 years, somewhere in there, I think 25.
Were you working carpentry before you worked with Perry Brothers?
Oh, yeah. I had my own company before I worked for Perry Brothers.
Okay. Where were you based out of?
Lynn,
Mass.
Mass.
Have you been in Lynn your whole...
Pretty much, except for 4 years, I lived down in Virginia.
Were you doing carpentry in Virginia?
Nah, school. 14 to 18 I was.
What kind of schooling?
Regular school, and also I went to tech.
Okay.
I went to tech for machine shop.
What made you decide carpentry was your calling?
Well, I was working at a machine shop and making chump change, and I worked second shift, and I was still only making like $5.50 an hour. And I got kind of bored with the night shift, being 18 years old, and so I jumped into carpentry because I did it in school. I liked the woodworking and stuff. So, and then the opportunity was there because people in the neighborhood were looking for help.
So that's a good question to go off of. When you were first starting your carpentry business, what was your way of getting jobs? You just go door to door?
No, mostly I work for contractors.
So you'd have someone like Perry Brothers,
yeah,
send
he was
you a
actually
job.
One of them.
He was one of them?
Yeah, he was one of the guys I worked for.
So tell us how you met Bill, I guess. What was meeting Bill like?
I liked Bill right off the bat. He was easy to talk to, good guy. He's funny.
Of course.
And yeah, he was a good guy right off the bat. The company I worked for at the time was a company called Olympic, and I quit them, and he was subbing work to Olympic, so I got contacted with him through Olympic.
Okay, so he
painting and roofing company. So, but they didn't like them.
So you were mostly doing painting and roofing with them, or
no? I did their carpentry work.
Okay, so you just knew Bill just talking to him through there, and he eventually offered you a job.
Yeah. Well, I asked him.
Oh, okay.
I was like, yeah, I'm done with this guy. I asked him if he needed a guy, because also I was getting tired of working for myself because I was by myself with just one helper. So I was putting in all kinds of hours. And then when it came all down to it, I was like making less than $10 an hour for all the work and killing myself. And I liked Bill. He was easy to work with, and his money was always there.
I was going to say a little more money.
Yeah. His money was good, though. It was always there. A lot of companies, here's some, and we'll give you the rest on Monday, and that kind of thing, and that wasn't fun. Yep, so I started working for your uncle. The first job I did for him was his cousin Ronnie's girlfriend in Walnut Street in Saugus.
What kind of job? What was the job?
Siding.
Siding?
Yeah, when I started for him, I mostly did all siding for Bill.
What kind of siding was it like back in that?
Vinyl.
Vinyl size? So
yeah.
It's like recycled plastic? Exactly. What is vinyl siding? It's
a PVC product, which is a plastic product.
So like the same as like the PVC pipes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just different type of plastic, but it's all PVC,
Because I know Bill used
plastic.
He started out, he told me, with like aluminum siding was his big thing for a while.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any of that?
I never put it on the wall. I've done jobs where I had to repair it and, change out whatever, but yeah, I never actually did a whole house in aluminum. That was already kind of by the wayside by then.
What would you consider carpentry? What is the scope of carpentry exactly? What does that cover in a construction site?
Anything where you're building. Carpentry could be, even steel workers are carpenters, really, because they're putting together a building.
So it's not just wood?
No.
So it's anything that has to do with the construction process.
Yeah, because if you're doing sheetrock, you're still doing carpentry, but you're sheetrock. You know what I mean?
No shit,
which
really?
isn't wood.
Really?
It's still carpentry.
Oh. So even like you're doing like foundation, the foundational stuff?
Still.
So carpentry is literally just the entire building of the house, basically.
Building. Yeah, it's a building thing, yeah.
Because I always had it like in my head, carpentry was, just the framing and the,
Yep.
cabinet work, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
finish work, yeah.
Yeah, finish work, exactly.
Yeah, but it's also siding and roofing.
What would you say is the biggest challenge when it comes to a carpentry job?
Old houses.
Old houses, really?
Yeah, some houses, the studs are anywhere from an inch and a half to a full 2 inches thick. And the older stock was more true to the wood. If it was a 2x4, it measured 2 inches by 4 inches. Then as it went on, some studs, they got down to doing like 1 3/4 by 3 3/4.
Were
And
they
now,
still advertised as 2x4?
yeah, and they still are now, and they're inch and a half by 3 1/2, and they're still 2x4s. Unless you go pressure treated. Sometimes a pressure treated will give or take an eighth.
So why do you think they advertise it still as 2x4 if you're not getting a 2x4?
I guess probably because it's easier to say than inch and a half by 3 1/2.
Costs less money just to label them all as the same.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Probably, yeah. I'm guessing that's how they do it.
And they always...
Plus, they don't want you to think that you're getting less wood. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
They think they want you to think you're still getting the same product, just like today in grocery stores. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, they shrink the sizes of
Of the packaging.
Oh, yeah.
And then raise the price.
Do you think the wood, the quality of the stock and the lumber was better back in the day than now? Or
Yes.
You think so?
Yeah, they waited for it to grow longer, and they dried it slower. Now they grow it quick and they dry it quick, and the wood isn't as stable as it used to be.
And what do you mean by stability? Like
it bows easier now, twists and bows
can
easier.
split easier?
Yeah, and because it's still drying, even though you're building with it, it's still drying. Even though it's kiln dried, it isn't completely dried like it used to be.
Yeah.
Because
now the wood's even. I've heard Bill told me before, like lumber prices, especially since like COVID, they're through the roof.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, they are. This is true. Although they seem to be coming down a little bit, but
coming down now.
A little bit, but not much. It probably will. Everything. Once it goes up, it never comes back down to where it was.
No, of course
it never
not.
does.
What's the process if you're starting from scratch? Building walls. So if you have a room like this and you're trying to.
Yeah.
Just gut it and, redo all the drywall and walling. What's the start to finish of that?
Well, once you tear everything down, you have to do your layout. That's the first thing you got to do, where you're going to put the wall.
Is that on like a design plan?
Yeah, usually they have plans that you can go off of, and it tells you how far away, from the outside wall and where you want your walls and stuff. So then you put your thing down, you snap your line, so where you want to put the wall, then you cut your plates to go in that area that you're putting the wall. Then once you cut the plates, you lay them out off one end and you're doing 16 on center with your studs. You bang them all together, nail them together. Then you got to make sure they're plumb and square if you can. Sometimes it's always an issue. Always an option.
What is plumbing? Yeah, what do you mean by plumbing square?
Plumb is when it's perfectly level up and down.
Oh, plumb. Okay.
Level is on the horizontal. Plumb is vertical. And square is corner to corner.
So when you say level, like it's not bowing, you mean like it's not bowing or anything?
Yeah, it's not bowing, but also it's on a straight plane and is level with the level bow.
Oh, rather than inching a little vertically or going down a little bit or something.
Yeah, it's straight across level. You know what I mean? By the level.
Like what's like, because like if you're leveling the frame of a place like that, it's important obviously to get it leveled and measured correctly.
Absolutely.
What kind of issues could you run into if you didn't follow those steps properly?
The walls you're going to could be out of plumb,
which
is going to change the plumb on your outside studs. The in middle studs should still be plumb, but the outside ones might not be plumb because of the walls. If the walls are leaned out or in or whatever, which will also make it so you can't really square it. So then you're trying to kind of go to the next stud and square in between, so make sure that's square, so everything's plumb.
So the framing, if one piece of framing isn't plumb, it will affect the entire wall.
No, not really.
Not really. So you have to detrimentally like.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. You make your studs all plumb all in the middle. If the outside ones are out of plumb, it's because it's up against the wall, and then you just have to cut your sheetrock at an angle.
Oh, so you know
When you're
that you know
sheetrocking.
tricks to get. I mean, you've been doing
Yeah.
this long enough. You know ways to kind of get around that.
Yeah. Yes.
Would you say client communication is a very large part of your job?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. You have to talk to the customers all the time. You need to know what they want. And if the print shows you one thing, and once you tear everything down, you can't see inside walls. So once you tear everything down, if it isn't the way that they're showing you on the print, then sometimes you have to work around that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to talk to the customer about the options that he has to work around it and what he wants to do. You know what I mean? Different options are also different prices depending on how far you want to go with it, you know?
Different materials and stuff too?
Yeah, it could be different materials, or maybe you want to straighten that wall out instead of just going up to it, something like that, you know what I mean? So there's other options you can do.
What do you mean by straighten the wall?
If the wall's out of plumb,
Okay.
and you don't want to have your wall out of plumb in that corner looking crooked, and you want to have it nice and straight, well, then we'd have to straighten out the other wall that you're going up to. So that would be more money, because now you're not just building a wall between two walls. Now you're fixing a wall that you weren't going to touch at all.
When you fix the wall, you got to tear down the whole wall. Like you can't just like fix if it's out of plumb on just a small section of the wall. You got to go into the whole wall.
Well, it's all tied in with the sheetrock and stuff, so you can't just move the wall over because the sheetrock's in the way. You'd have to cut the ceiling back so you can move the wall over even.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? And then you got to get up in there where it's attached to the ceiling and to the floor, depending on if you have to move the bottom out or the top in, or you know what I mean? Depending on what you have to do,
Yeah.
You would have to open up above or below so you can get at the nails where they're nailed into the floor or into the joists above, so you can move it.
Give me an example.
Lots
What's a problem you've personally run into, on some job?
Well, framing houses, I've run into a situation where the foundation wasn't put in square. So, you know what I mean? It measures the same amount from across corners, have the same measurement.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to hang this sill plate off the foundation a couple inches sometimes, because you still want what you're building to be square.
But obviously you can't, you're not going to be able to change the foundation, so you have to work around what you have.
Yeah, so instead of using a 2x6, we ended up using a 2x10, so we could still bolt it to the foundation, and it just hung out over the foundation a little bit. The plate hung over the foundation, so now when I build my box, the floor,
mm-hmm.
it can be square, and then we can go up from there square all the way up. But if you start out at the foundation not square, you're not going to get a square the rest of the way up either. You know what I mean?
But there are ways for you to get around it.
There's ways to get around it.
Okay. And you mentioned historic homes being probably the biggest challenge, when it comes to it.
That's because you get the historical society involved, and
you need special siding.
No, historical society.
Oh.
On historical houses, they're usually involved in it, and they have their own special way of they want things done. Like, they don't necessarily want you to fix it. They just wanted you to make it safe or make it look good, but not necessarily fix the issue on it.
So they want to keep the aesthetic of the
like I did this house, that Samuel Herrick house in Beverly. So the guy, the contractor who hired us, wanted us to straighten the floors out because the floors are really wavy.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent a week straightening out all the floors, jacking up all the stuff. We even jacked up off the foundation, got everything all right. We got the floors perfectly level and pretty and everything. Historical Society comes in and flipped out. They were not happy with it at all. They said we took all the character out of the house. In the meantime, I'm sure the house was built originally with straight floors.
Oh yeah, what do you mean character? Yeah, you're gonna trip. Someone's gonna trip on the bumps on the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you need special stock for a historic home too that matches the historic? Matches its originality.
Yeah, some stuff they want to, like windows and stuff, they want to match the old style of windows. It could be new windows, but they want it to look like old style.
Oh, so they make new windows that look old.
Yeah.
On purpose, I see. Do those cost more money than like a normal?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Of course, because they're special orders.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, historic homes probably cost even more money sometimes to renovate than something like this,
Right.
you know?
And a lot of times with historic homes, they don't want you to just rip out and put in new stock. They want you to refurbish what's there. So they want it to look the same. And some of that stuff you have to do by hand or, remake it to make it work.
Make the stock by hand? What
Yes.
are you making? Oh, really?
Sometimes you have to make the stock, yeah.
How do you make stock by hand?
You use your table saw and your routers and whatever, the tools you need to make whatever you're making, you know what I mean?
So what are you getting originally that
Probably most times flat stock.
what is flat stock?
1x or 1/4, 5/4 stock, or like 1x4, 1x5,
So
or 5/4, 1x4 and 1x5. You know, it says a 1 is really only 3/4 of an inch thick. So the 5/4 stock, what they call 5/4, is actually only 1 inch thick, 4/4. So I don't know why they say that. Make
I
it
know.
like that. But that's just the way
It seems a little lazy.
Yeah.
A little. That's funny. Yeah. So yeah. So you got to you got to actually.
Sometimes you have to
convert it,
manufacture the
manufacture
part
it.
to make it look like the old stuff.
Funny enough, because we're in here actually right now. You were actually the initial one to work on this on my room right here.
Yeah.
Funny, I know I can't really show it on the camera, but the wall behind you with the door, you actually framed this entire wall. There wasn't a wall here before.
Yeah, and pulled out that big fireplace you had over there.
remember
and all
that day,
you
yep.
and your friend.
Yeah.
With the sledgehammers.
It was good times.
Yeah.
Do you remember? What do you exactly remember about? Yeah, just what do you remember about that project a little bit, if you can?
Mostly, I remember taking out that fireplace. That was a lot of work.
It was a lot of no.
It was heavy. I mean, this was easy. This is basic.
Yeah, there
Build a
wasn't
wall.
anything there.
Build a wall with a door in it. That's easy.
I remember you had to move the heater
Yes.
back there too. You had to move that over because it was
Yeah.
in the way of the door.
Yeah. And then there was a lot of this is a soundproof room, so there was a lot of extra work to this room, anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you had to do the resilient channels and everything. Was it double drywall? I think you had to do.
Yeah,
with
but
it?
even the drywall is a sound deadening drywall that you can buy special.
Is it just thicker drywall?
No, it's like a 2-layer drywall. So it has I think it has like a piece of paper through the middle of it or something. It has something in the middle where it makes it like a 2-layer. So it's one piece, but it's like 2 layers.
Oh, so that little.
So that deadens it that way also. And then you use 2 layers of the sheetrock with this glue stuff that they use.
The green glue.
Which is, the green glue, which is also a deadening. So everything you're doing is for deadening sound. You know?
Yeah, nothing getting in, nothing getting out.
Right.
That paper probably in the middle must act like I know the air gap between the drywall and the resilient channels.
Yeah.
Once the sound's kind of rumbling through the drywall and hits that air gap, it
Right.
basically just
Dissipates.
Dissipates, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was I described that in a recent podcast we did, and it was kind of it's actually a pretty affordable way to soundproof a room. I think Bill was telling me too. He said they do that a lot in condos. They use that
Right.
same kind of method.
Yes, between condo units.
Yeah.
They'll also do a double wall between a condo unit.
Well, how many layers of drywall would you say being like a double wall like that?
3.
3 layers. Okay.
Because they put one on the inside of each unit, but they also put one in between the 2 walls between the units.
So then there's a
So
wall.
between them.
Yeah, there's one wall in between the 2 condos.
Well, it's not a wall. It's 2 walls. They build double walls. Then you slide in when you do this one, you sheetrock both sides of one wall.
And this is inside one condo unit.
Yeah, between 2 units. This is
Okay.
one person's unit. This is another person's unit.
Mhm.
The wall that's a party wall between them. There's usually 2 walls. They sheetrock both sides on one, and then just the inside on the other, and they use that for sound deadening. And plus, they insulate the wall, which would also sound deaden the wall.
What kind of insulation you find is the best for sound deadening?
Well, they usually use fiberglass, but the foam is probably better.
I've heard that, the spray foam, right?
Yeah.
How do they usually get the spray foam into the walls?
They use a gun. They have a truck that's set up with all the chemicals in it and everything, and they run hoses out with a gun, and then they just up and down like they're painting with it.
Do they do it from the inside or the outside?
The inside, usually they do it on the inside, yeah, because they want to do it in the bay so you don't see the foam, you know what I mean?
Would you say this? Do you know if the spray foam's cheaper than just normal fiberglass?
No, it's more.
It is more money.
I'm
Oh.
pretty sure. Bill's better at the pricing though.
No,
But I'm pretty sure that it's more money.
because I know these walls they have I think it's the Roxol.
Yeah.
Roxol. Is that fiberglass or what is that?
I
Exactly.
think it's fiberglass.
Yeah.
There's probably got fiberglass in it, but there's also some paper, I think, in it. Or
Yeah,
something.
it's thicker than like the normal pink fiberglass insulation.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
what
denser.
saying. A lot denser. Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
denser. It comes in squares instead of rolls.
Yeah, and also I remember taking it. Actually, all these panels in this room are made with that stuff, and like compared, yeah, they don't. It doesn't break. You know, it doesn't like leave as many shreds and a fiberglass
Or dust and all that too.
Absolutely.
It's not as itchy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, of course. Yeah, another thing I wanted to talk about with you too, because I've worked with you too when you've worked on some cabinets and everything like that. I mean, cabinetry, you gotta. That seems like a pretty.
Well, it's a little more exact.
I was gonna say very
You
exact.
have to be a little better on your measurements and stuff. It's not as like when you do sheetrock. You usually cut sheetrock a quarter. You measure and then you cut it a quarter small so it goes in there because you cover the seams with the tape and mud, and after the fact. But with cabinets and stuff, you got to be right on with your measurements.
There's nothing gonna cover up anything after.
No.
Do you find yourself? Is it split between where sometimes you have to put the cabinets together? Do they come prefabricated?
Usually they're prefabricated, but they do have them. Like if you get them from Lowe's or something, they have them that they're all knocked down and you put them together. But they're usually not as well built as the ones you buy custom, from a cabinet company.
So what kind of work goes into installing a prefabricated cabinet?
Well, you gotta find your level lines. Find out see if your floor is level, because if the floor isn't level, the cabinets have to be level. So you might have to shim cabinets up as you go along on the floor cabinets, and then you measure up from the top of the other cabinet up to the bottom cabinets, and you set your tops up. And usually you got to find your studs because you have to screw the cabinets to the studs.
So you're starting top to bottom. You go bottom to top. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Okay.
I usually put the bottoms in. Some people put the tops in first. It doesn't really matter which one you do first, but some people find it easier to put the tops in first because you don't have to lean over the lower cabinets. But I'm kind of tall, so I don't have a problem with leaning over.
Do some people, when you install cabinets too, don't you have to do the floor? Do you do the flooring before you install the cabinets? If it's a new kitchen,
you do the flooring after the cabinets.
You flooring last?
Yeah, because you want to floor up. Well, depends on what you want to do. Because again, there's lots of ways to do it, and they're not wrong. But some people want tile underneath their cabinets, so they'll tile the floor or hardwood the floor under the cabinets, and then they'll put the cabinets in. But some people don't want to pay the extra for the cabinets or whatever, for the flooring or whatever. So what they'll do is install the cabinets, and then you put the flooring up to the cabinets.
Okay, so
but if you do it that way, you kind of have to use 3/4 and lift the cabinets up somewhat, because otherwise you're gonna have a hard time getting your dishwasher in.
What kind of problem? Like if the cabinets come up unleveled, what are besides the obvious that things could be sliding around. What is really like what is detrimental to the cabinets not being perfectly leveled?
Well, like you say, anything you put it can roll around in. If it's round, it'll roll around up in there. Also, when your cabinets come up to your stove, they'll be at different heights. You don't really
looks all messy.
It looks terrible.
Looks bad.
Well, what's an idea? Doors. When you do doors, doors have to be plumb and square. They have to be plumb, because if it's tipping out, when you open the door out, the door can go down and it can scrape. Or if you open it in and it's leaning in, then when you open the door, you won't be able to open the door all the way because it'll hit the floor. So even if the wall isn't plumb, you still got to put your door in fairly plumb.
So the process of getting
if it's a little out, you can mess with it a little bit to get it to go good if it's a little out of plumb. But if it's a lot out of plumb, we've actually put 2x in and made them plumb and actually built it out. So say that the top needed to come out, we'll put in 2x on the sides to go up, and then fill in across the top and have one come on the other side. So the door is now sitting perfectly plumb, even though it's off the wall. It could be a little bit off the wall or whatever at the top. And then you just have to deal with that, with the trim and stuff.
Sometimes you gotta shave the bottom and the top of the doors too, right?
No, usually not exterior doors. Interior doors, if you're putting a new door in an old opening, and so you're not putting a new frame in, you're just putting the door in an old frame. Sometimes you have to trim the top or the bottom, depending on what, because the opening might not be square anymore. Okay. You know what I mean?
Is it the same idea of windows too?
Yeah, pretty much.
You just gotta like, what is that? Like you gotta keep them level.
Well, they gotta be. Well, they have to be square. Windows have to be square. They don't have to be plumb, but they have to be square, because otherwise, when you bring the sash down, you'll see a different line. Gap will be a different gap on the bottom, and if it's like that, if it's bad enough, it doesn't even cover. So when you come in, air can come into it. So you really won't need a window to be square.
What would be, like, your favorite part about, what would be your favorite part about, like, your job?
Carpentry?
Yeah, called carpentry.
Well,
what do you...
I love doing the finish work.
Finish work's your favorite part?
Yeah.
Why?
You can get creative, show some skills.
Really? So, like, what? How would you, if you were to show your skills finishing, what would it be?
Well, like building your fireplace up there.
I'll add a picture of that mantle. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, it came out really nice. That's all from scratch. You know what I mean? The little designer things, I bought those and just nailed them on, because that's a lot. Those are a lot of work, and I don't have the tools to do that kind of work.
But you had to piece.
That's like a factory work, that kind of stuff. The scrolly stuff on your thing. But everything else I made myself. So
you had to cut the the plane, the mantle and stuff like that, and figure out how you wanted to design it.
Right, and again, you still want that to be level, because if you're looking at a mantle, people could tell if it's out of level. It'd be like, hey,
the handle starts sliding or something.
Right.
Like.
Yeah.
Kenny, seriously, thank you for
no problem
for sharing your time.
Always a pleasure, brother.
Always a pleasure, and thank you guys. This was great. So, Perry Brothers Construction.
Now I'll go up and finish that hood I was doing.
Yeah, now Kenny's going to get back to work. But Kenny does good work. They all do.